I'm Rhoda Sokoloff, running for County Court Judge in Group 17. I'm going to quick thank you, first of all, for having us. You can learn everything about me. Go onto Facebook, just under my name, Rhoda Sokoloff, or go to my campaign page, or go to Rhoda for Judge. And you can see all the community involvement that I'm involved with. And by doing all this community involvement, it's public service. By being a judge, that's public service. Just an extension of what I already do. So remember to vote for Rhoda Sokoloff on August 28th. Group 17 County Court. Thank you.
Thank you, that's time. All right, moving to your questions. Each of you again will get to pick a question. Will you please pass the microphone to our first group? Who has like 3 of them? Thank you. Step forward, please. Ms. Corey Amanda Coffin. She wants a good one. Let's see. With their, are you running against the You're not. I'll say this will go to the next person because it applies to running against a company. All right. What are your views on whether the court as a whole deals effectively with racial and gender bias? What are your views on whether the court as a whole deals effectively with racial and gender bias?
I'm not sure that that's a yes or no question. I think that that's something that can always use improvement. I think it's something that all of our judges and our attorneys need to be mindful of. Gender and racial bias is something that we all encounter on a daily basis. I think anyone in this room who would say otherwise would either be uninformed or purposely stating otherwise. As a woman, I'm aware of the bias that females encounter on a daily basis in our profession. And in our courthouse, I'm sensitive to the fact that that's something that we always need to be working toward and being mindful of, working to improve. I know that this is an issue that people encounter both as judges, as attorneys, and as parties to all of the lawsuits, both civil and criminal, in our courthouses. And I think it's something that people need to be aware of and constantly strive to address and try to make better.
Thank you. You can give her a hand. Next to the microphone is Mr. Tanner Demry. Question states, what are the pros and cons of using driver's license registration as a source of jurors? What are the pros and cons of using driver's licenses registrations as a source of jurors?
See, being a trial attorney, implicitly, my thought process would be, the hope is to get a truly fair and balanced, impartial, potential panel of potential jurors. We hope to do when I'm in trial and jury selection, called voir dire. You have a young client, and you're trying to make that person feel like they're going to get a fair shake. And the hope is that when you get exactly what they feel is a fair shake to them, someone that looks like them, someone that speaks like them, someone that maybe is the same age as them, comes from the same place as them. So implicitly, what I'm thinking is if you're choosing blindly by just running your driver's license, you would hopefully get hopefully a balanced, unbiased potential veneer. So that's my opinion on that, just from a trial attorney's perspective. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Demery. You pass the mic. Ms. Greller, you're up next. All right. What do you perceive as the greatest obstacles to justice, if any? What do you perceive as the greatest obstacles to justice, if any?
I think that being undereducated and not being clear about what to do or how to go about bringing a suit in either small claims court is a very big problem. I think an additional problem is not being able to afford to go to small claims court. If you are owed more than $2,700 or $2,500, you must pay a $300 claim fee in order to bring the suit. And I think another obstacle to justice is the amount of money that we're giving in terms of budget to be able to have more people come in, more programs, and in general, the ability to make justice available to all.
Thank you, Ms. Kelly. Greller, excuse me. Judge? All right, Judge, let's see if you get a good one too. Violent crime, particularly youth violence, is perceived to be at a crisis level by many experts today. What, if any, do you believe is an appropriate role for the judiciary in addressing this perceived crisis? I'll repeat the question. Violent crime, particularly youth violence, is perceived to be at a crisis level by many experts today. What, if any, do you believe is an appropriate role for the judiciary in addressing this perceived crisis?
I think it's perceived as a crisis for a long time. I don't think it's today. Youth violent crime has been good for a while. Some of the laws have changed. They've made it stricter for some youth in order to be certified as an adult to be tried. But they've also put a lot of judges in positions of juvenile court that we have in our Broward County system here. And what they do is they now weigh everything and decide whether a child should be waived over or not. The legislature is working on some of these things. They've amended the civil citation to stop some kids from getting in trouble the first time. That way they don't get in trouble the second time, so it keeps kids away from the system. As long as they're away from the system, I think that helps all of us. I think it helps them, and I think then it helps them move on to become productive citizens. And I think the judiciary needs to play a big role in that. And we do that by doing our job there and letting the legislature see what we actually do in court in hopes that they can craft some better laws to make sure kids stay out of trouble.
Thank you, Representative Diaz. Mr. Michael Heiss? All right, we'll go back to one that you started to address earlier. With there being a number of open judicial vacancies in this year's election cycle, what was your motivation to challenge this incumbent judge? With there being a number of open judicial vacancies in this year's election cycle, what was your motivation to challenge this incumbent judge?
It's real simple. Change is needed sometimes. Change is good. Things don't get better by chance. Things get better by chance. I'm a firm believer. If I don't think something is right, I'm not going to complain about it. I'm going to step up and say, you got to use it. I believe that change is needed in Group 10, but I'm not the only one that thinks that. It's a process of being a candidate. We had an interview with Sun Sentinel. They sat down over an hour with me and my opponent. They grilled us like we were having a job modification. They really were. And at the end of the meeting, and after reviewing our credentials, reviewing our background, things that we said in our interview, they chose me as the best person to be in the new county court judge. Very proud of that. Again, in summary, is change is good.
Thanks, Mr. House. All right, finishing off to Group 17, incumbent Judge Michael Davis. Your question reads, in the area of hate crimes, what are some of the issues in balancing free speech rights against the need to control offensive activity? In the area of hate crimes, what are some of the issues in balancing free speech rights against the need to control offensive activity?
Interesting question. I recognize it from the League of Women Voters. 411 form. Thank you. Difficult for a sitting judge or for any judicial candidate to answer such a question. The First Amendment is very broad, as we all know. It guarantees quite a bit of free speech rights. The Supreme Court has limited those rights in some regards. For instance, the very famous case where they held that you can't use firearm around a theater, inciting a panic, inciting things like that. So it's very important for a judge to be mindful of hearing a hate crime case to, number one, balance the free speech rights versus the incitement issue. It's a very broad issue. It's certainly something that we judges, we rely on the attorneys to bring in quite extensive case law for us to weigh. Thank you very much. I think it's a great question. Thanks for including on the 411 question.
Thank you, and you can pass the mic to your opponent, Ms. Rhoda Sokolov, finishing out Group 17.
Can I get that public one question?
Okay. So, with there being a number of open judicial vacancies in this year's election cycle, what was your motivation to challenge this incumbent judge?
Well, thank you for the question, and I wrote a softball. It was a difficult choice. I went through all the different races, and frankly, I did not want to go until November. I wanted to be done in August. I believe that the job as a judge is not guaranteed by anybody. I think that's the reason we have elections. And I think all of us should be vetted by our community and voted on. So that's the reason I went against, well, that's the race I picked. I believe that I have the most experience, I have the most life experience, the most legal experience, the most experience in the community. And my experience alone, as I said before, my public service, and as a judge, it's public service, and that's what's so important. It's just an extension of what I already do. I've been out in the community for more than 20 years, and it's just an extension. So I'm asking, remember my name, Rhoda Sokoloff, running for County Court Judge in Group 17. Please vote for me if you haven't voted already. Thank you.
All right, and so we have the state will exit by group. Let's start with, once again, group, you put on the seat, thank you. Let's just have group 9 rise. So you see the 3 candidates, Corey Amanda Kaufman, Tanner Demery, and Leonore M. Weller. Thank you, you may exit the stage. Thank you. Thank you again, candidates from group 10, you may rise. I sound like you, Judge. Robert F. Diaz, the incumbent, and Michael John Heiss. Thank you for being here tonight. And thank you again for candidates from group 17, come forward. Incumbent, Michael Davis, as well as Rhoda Sokoloff. Thank you. Moving to groups 19,